Hi there. I'm Cindy Linden, and this is a Cookalong podcast quick bite. I took a picture of a recipe in a magazine some time back. Remember when we used to have to either surreptitiously tear out the recipe in the magazine while you're waiting in the doctor's office or steal the whole magazine in order to get the recipe you wanted to take home? I presume I'm not the only one who used to do that. Nowadays, we can just take pictures of them. It feels so much healthier, morally healthier. This is a recipe for a side dish called baked cheesy rice. And I didn't photograph what magazine I got the recipe from, but based on my usual reading material and the locations in which I read it, I have a pretty educated guess that it's either Cook's Country or Cook's Illustrated, and it's probably really good as a side dish. But the night I decided it sounded good to try, I needed a main dish, and so I modified it into a main dish. If you want the side dish, I'll tell you right now, I will put the actual recipe for just a side dish only in the notes at the bottom of the recipe page for this on the cookalongpodcast.com. But I want to give you the recipe for the full meal deal because it's become one of my favorite sort of rotational things. It's one I make often because it's so fast and it's very tasty. I thought about making this recipe with you because there are enough ingredients that I don't want you to get confused, and I thought we maybe should just cook it together. And the more I made it and thought about it, the more I thought this is silly. It's just so simple. There's no reason I need to cook it with you guys. I will just tell you about it. As a main dish, it'll only serve 2. I thought it would do 3, but no, we kept going back for more. We'd do that every time. So 2 people. So I'm going to call my version baked cheesy chicken and rice. And it can be easy or it can be easier, which I will tell you as we go through the ingredients. You need 2 cups of cooked rice. So here's how you want to do that in case you want to make the rice yourself. And I'll give you an alternative to that in just a moment. But to cook the rice, you want just regular long grain white rice. Put about 2/3 of a cup into a saucepan, preferably with a glass lid, and add 1.33 cups of water and a pinch of salt. Bring it to a boil, put the glass lid on, and turn it way down to like 2 or so on your stovetop. And watch it until it stops bubbling. And when it stops bubbling and you can't see bubbles coming up through the rice anymore, it's done. Take it off the stove. If you don't want to work this hard and you're willing to make do with a little less rice, you can get one of those 90-second rice packets in the grocery store. I think those are only about 1.5 cups, but they might be a little bit more than that. And in a pinch, if you just don't want to fuss at all, use that instead. Heat it up the way the instructions say, just the original flavor, plain white rice, nothing fancy. You need 1.25 cups of shredded Gouda cheese. Now this is the hard Gouda. It's not the soft stuff or the smoked stuff. This is the aged Gouda. You can use other cheeses here. I have done so. I've done a combination of cheddar and Gruyere. It was still really good. I think you could probably use all cheddar, but the Gouda, if you can just get a triangle of aged Gouda that is really hard and really sharp, you will be glad you did because it's just an unusual and very sharp and pointed flavor that's really good in this. You want 1/2 cup of frozen peas and 4 to 6 ounces of chicken. And here again, you have choices with the chicken. You can either get a chicken breast or a chicken thigh that's about 4 to 6 ounces, cut it up and saute it really quickly. Or if you have a rotisserie chicken or can get a rotisserie chicken, just use the pre-cooked rotisserie chicken meat. Add again about 4 to 6 ounces, which is about 1/2 cup, maybe a heaping one. And cut that up into little pieces and throw that in. You also want 3/4 cup of sour cream. I use light sour cream. It really doesn't matter. You need 1/3 cup of chives that you're going to chop up. That one could be tricky because unless you're growing them in your yard, you're going to need probably a full clamshell pack of chives from your grocery store because 1/3 cup is quite a lot. And you want to chop those into little tiny bits when you get it. You need a tablespoon of butter and a little bit more for the pan. You need salt and pepper. And then I have another addition, which is tagine, but you don't have to do that. I just discovered belatedly that that's a really nice addition to this dish. So here's what you do. You got your cooked rice, your sour cream, your chopped chives, your chopped chicken, and your frozen peas. Keep out about a quarter of a cup of the shredded cheese and put the rest of the cheese. Dump that all into a bowl and stir it up together. Add a little salt and pepper. You may need to add more at the table. Don't oversalt it just in case, because the cheese itself is going to be really salty no matter what kind of cheese you use, but it's easy to salt additionally at the table. Then you're going to take a slab of softened butter on your fingers and spread that butter on the inside of an 8x8 pan. That's like a brownie pan, a little square pan. You're going to really slather that butter in there. You want a nice thick layer of butter all over the bottom, in the corners, and on the edges of that pan. Once it's all buttered, you're going to take the mixture that you put into the bowl and dump it into that brownie pan, because essentially now it's a casserole dish. Sprinkle the rest of your cheese, that quarter cup you kept out, over the top. And then cut a tablespoon of butter into little bits and put those over the top, kind of dot it around on the top. And then you're going to bake the whole casserole at 450 degrees for about 20 minutes. So that would be a do-ahead. You need to turn your oven on before you even start putting these ingredients together, because hopefully by the time you get everything put together, the oven will be ready for you. After your 20 minutes, if it's not kind of starting to turn brown on the top, you can turn the broiler on over the top just for a couple of minutes, just so it starts to get kind of brownish and crusty, because the crusty parts are always the best, I think, of almost any recipe. If you decided you wanted a little sharpness to this casserole recipe and you like tagine, you would want to add that just to taste or to smell, however much you like, when you put all the ingredients together into a bowl. Tagine is a powdered thing. It's a combination of chili, lime, and salt. So it'll really brighten things up and add just a little zing to anything you cook it with. And that's available in your grocery store if you wanted to try that. And I think once you try it, you'll find a lot of other things that it is happy on. That's the whole recipe. So now, just to sum up, here's what you do to make this yummy casserole main dish that comes together in 30 minutes. The do-aheads would be to preheat your oven to 450 degrees, and if you're going to do it, to make some rice, about 2 cups of rice, or get your packet heated up, to shred the cheese, and to chop the chives and the chicken. And you butter a whole 8x8 casserole pan. Into a bowl, you put 2 cups of rice, 4 to 6 ounces of chicken, a cup of grated cheese, a half a cup of frozen peas, 3/4 of a cup of sour cream, the 1/3 of a cup of chives, and then salt and pepper, and if you want some, tagine to taste. You stir that all up, you dump it into the 8x8 pan, you spread it out so it's kind of flat, you throw the rest of the cheese, a 1/4 cup, on top, and then you dot that with about a tablespoon of butter. You bake it for 20 minutes at 450 degrees. That's it. If you want to, you can sprinkle some more chives on top, but it really doesn't need them. I mean, I suppose it would make it prettier, but you got plenty of chives in there already, so it's not necessary. I hope you're hearing how easy this is to do, and I really can't emphasize enough how good it is if you like cheese. But keep in mind, it'll only feed 2 of you. And if you need to feed a family of 4, you're going to have to get a 9x13 casserole, and you're going to have to double all this, which takes away some of the easiness, but doesn't make it a whole lot harder. I hope you'll try this. If you want to see pictures of it, you can check out the webpage on the cookalongpodcast.com under Baked Cheesy Chicken and Rice. If you love this dish, tell a friend. Tell a friend to go listen to this podcast on the Cookalong Podcast feed. You'll find a lot of other yummy things in there, and your friend will probably be glad to know that resource is available to them. Go find a fun dessert to go after this and you'll have a lovely evening chomping down on Cookalong podcast recipes. And until next time, happy cooking!